Well, thank you, Mark. I hope you can hear me. I just actually switched my volume. So Mark, is that still okay? Great. So I'm so grateful to be here. Grateful to Mark, grateful to Adi, grateful to IJS for continuing these beautiful meditations each day, and to all of you for showing up. And I'm also grateful to Bev Sherman Labatt for supporting this with her sponsoring today. So thank you so much. And as Mark mentioned, I've often led, or I've all this last year led during the week of starting a new book of the Torah. And so when I was finding this day, I thought, oh, it's the week of Bereshit. But to my delight, I got to study a little bit more about Hoshanah Rabbah. There were so many different possibilities for sharing today on this 7th day of Sukkot. It's really the end of a holiday. The last day we dwell in the sukkah, and so here I am in my sukkah, my little sukkah with these beautiful banners that were made by a neighbor. And I'm grateful that the weather in New England has been wonderful this week. I've had almost every meal here in my sukkah. So let me begin with Psalm 27. We started adding this psalm to our liturgy at the beginning of Elul, 7 short or long weeks ago, depending on your perspective. It's been my tradition to prepare for the High Holy Days using this psalm in one form or another for many, many years. And today is the last day we traditionally include Psalm 27 in our liturgy. This year, I was grateful to have discovered a new book by an IJS clergy alumna, Rabbi Deborah Robbins from Dallas. Although Rabbi Deborah and I have never met, I found out through a series of coincidences just this weekend that she is on the call today, and I'm especially pleased for her to see how far-reaching her book has been. So Adi, if you could share the text for today, that would be great. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use her book to the fullest this year, I admit, but I got a taste of it, and I know that I will use it more in the future. It's called, as you see, opening your heart with Psalm 27, a spiritual practice for the Jewish New Year. As we move through the 7 weeks, Rabbi Deborah encourages us to do the following: gather, settle, bless, read, write, sit, forgive, remember, and celebrate. So you see those words there: gather, settle, bless, read, write, sit, forgive, remember, and celebrate. I love that she puts these words at the bottom of every single page. These steps give us a framework for each day during those 7 weeks. And today I will select some of her words to get us started. Gather. We have already gathered together as we do each weekday. We become a community of meditators. Settle. I invite us all to settle ourselves, to get comfortable in your seat or your cushion, let go of any outside distractions, as Rabbi Mark mentioned already. And blessing. As a blessing to begin our time together, I offer this beautiful melody of the last verse of Psalm 27, verse 14, written by my friend, Cantor Richard Cohn, an IJS faculty member and director of the Debbie Friedman School of Sacred Music at HUC JIR in New York City. And Adi, if you'll move a little bit on the text, you'll see these words on my sheet with this beautiful translation by Rabbi Richard Levy that Rabbi Deborah used. Wait for Adonai. Fill your waiting with hope in Adonai. Let your heart be strong and of good courage, and wait hopefully for Adonai. Kaveh El Adonai Chazak Libecha Kekaveh Adonai Zekaveh Thank you so much, Adi. You can let the text go down. So what is Hoshanah Rabbah? I must admit that having worked in the Reform movement most of my pulpit life, I didn't know much about this day and never really experienced it. First of all, it's thought of as a sequel to the days of awe. There's a tradition that the harsh judgments can still be changed before Hoshanah Rabbah, that the final seal is not put on the books of life and death until then. So one of the moods of today could be solemnity, especially during the morning service. This festival is called Yom Hoshanah, the day of Hoshanah. Help us, we plead. During all of Sukkot, in each morning service, we circle one Hoshanah, one circuit around the Torah, which is being held at the Bima. On Hoshanah Rabbah, or Great Hoshanah, we circle the sanctuary 7 times. The liturgy is ancient poetry asking Adonai for rain. Each circuit has its own poem asking for a different kind of fertility. And each circuit also represents a mystical attribute of God. So another one of the moods of this day could be that of Simcha, the joy of Sukkot. The day is also known as Yom Aravah, the day of the willow, and Yom Chibut Aravot, the day of the beating of the willows. During all of Sukkot, we shake the lulav, which includes the willow and the etrog. On Hoshanah Rabbah, we start with the lulav and etrog during the Hoshanot, and then we remove or use separate willows and beat those willow branches to the ground, on the ground. Rabbi Jill Hammer shares the Midrash explaining we want the leaves to fly off as a sign of our desire to be free of sin and perhaps also to awaken the earth to its task of growth. So a mood of letting go. Finally, it's a time of celebrating water. On each day of the holiday, including today, in temple times, there was another special ritual called Simchat Bat HaShoeva, literally rejoicing of the house of water drawing. The priests carried the last of the past year's water carefully from the spring back to the temple with gratitude and faith that the rains would come. Hence the prayer for rain, Geshem, at the service tomorrow on Shmini Atzeret. And so we add the mood of gratitude. Many moods for this one day: solemnity, joy, letting go, gratitude. As we move to our sit, let us go back to Rabbi Deborah's list of words. The last 4 are sit, forgive, remember, and celebrate. Today, I invite you to consider an embodied sit, bringing in the many gifts of Hoshanah Rabbah. Sit. Perhaps for today, you might consider a walking meditation, circling the space where you are, either physically or in your mind's eye, contemplating one or more of the 7 Hoshanot. Last week, both Marita and Joshua spoke so beautifully about Sukkot being a time when we use our whole selves, our whole bodies. Forgive. Perhaps you would choose to take your real or imaginary willows and let go of something in your life that no longer feels right. Forgive yourself. Remember, perhaps you would like to use this time to express gratitude for this earth and to remember that every drop of water is precious. Wherever you take this time of quiet today will be a gift to you and to all who are here together. So we will take the next 10 minutes or so in silence. And I invite you to do it however you like, sitting comfortably, breathing, or moving as you wish. Ooh. El Adonai, Chazak Liber Vekavod 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 I leave you with these beautiful words that conclude Rabbi Deborah's book about Psalm 27 with such gratitude that she is here today and that perhaps I will get to meet her sometime. An excerpt. I think I finally understand the coda, the final verse, the way the voice changes at the very end. It speaks to me. Let your heart be strong and of good courage. It tells me that I have spoken to God, pleaded my case for 7 weeks, and now I have to move on to the next day, to the next 5 minutes, to the day after the holiest of days, to the land of the living, to ordinary life. It speaks to me, let your heart be strong and of good courage. I notice the final verse begins and ends in the same way, with the same phrase, creating a container of hope. This vessel holds all I need, 3 essential words to choose from at any given moment, alone, in combination with each other, in any order. They remind me, encourage me, bring me back in mind and spirit, if not in body, in time, if not in place, to this season, to this psalm, to this world, to my God. Chazak, be strong. V'ya'ametz, be courageous. Libecha, remember to use your heart. Kaveh El Adonai, Chazak v'yamitz libecha v'kaveh El Adonai, v'kaveh El Adonai, kaveh El Adonai. Thank you.
Cantor, Louise, Treitman, thank you so much. Friends, I'm going to put into the chat box a few links, by the way, before we conclude, as we always do, with an opportunity for mourners to recite the Kaddish, a link which you can just consult in a moment to Rabbi Deborah Robin's wonderful book, to a podcast with Rabbi Jonathan Slater as part of the Open My Heart podcast series on that project, and an app, in fact, that allows you to access the recording of Cantor Richard Cohn's melody and the text and the guide practice itself. Happy to give you a shout out, Rabbi Deborah Robbins, for magnificent work, and so wonderful to have the confluence of that with today's practice as you led it. Louise, thank you so much. Unfortunately, the audio quality was breaking up as you were singing a little bit, which is unfortunate, but people can access the chant as well on the app. So as we always
hear
do,
that from sorry, I did hear that from a chat that came, but I didn't notice it till the end. So I'm sorry
okay.
that
well,
my singing was not the best, but the recording is fantastic.
I'm sure your singing was the best, but the audio quality was not the best, but okay.
Yep.
So friends, for those who are in mourning, or if you're observing a yard site, we invite you at this time, if you'd like to share the name or names of those who you are holding in your heart today in the chat box. And in a moment, Adi Stein will share the words of Kaddish on the screen. And for those who are not reciting Kaddish, we can extend our practice by being present and loving and compassionate supporters for those who are holding heartbreak at this time. So invite those of you who are reciting Kaddish to join me by rising in body or in spirit for Kaddish. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Bialma, Tubrach, Berukei, Biamlich, Malchei, B'chaye Chon, Yomei Chon, B'chaye B'chal Beit Yisrael, Ha'agala, An Harim, Miru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Barach, Le'olam, Amen. Yitbarach, Yittabach, Yitba'ar, Yitramam, Yaseh. Yithadar, Yitalev, Yitbal, Mev Kudusha, Yiteh. La'elam, Tov Yerchata B'shirata, Ushbechata B'nachemata, Amiran Ya'olam, Yehesh Shlama Rabba Mishmael, Chaim Aleinu Yisrael, Amen. Shalom Yiromam. Yad Shalom. Aleinu
Amen.
As always, friends, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much to Bev Sherman Lavitt for sponsoring our practice in loving memory of your parents, Marjorie and Frank Sherman, around the season of the yard sites. Just want to add Bev's dedication, which I didn't get to when we began. Marjorie and Frank modeled hard work, perseverance, and the importance of tikkun olam. Bev's life and her family's life, and I think her son, Rabbi Adam Lavitt, is joining us today as well, are guided by their values. May it be Lador Vador. Amen. Beautiful. For those of you who are leaving us now, I want to wish you a Chag Sameach, good sealing of this holiday season and a good launch into the new year. We hope, of course, that IJS will join us for some of the many programs we're offering to support you in practice as we begin the new year. We will be back live on Thursday with Dr. Mira Neshama Nicolescu, who will be leading us in practice from Israel. And on Friday, Rabbi Shefa Gold will be leading us in practice both days, 12:30. And just a reminder that this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, the first session with Rabbi Aaron Lieb-Smokler for Torah Study to Sustain Your Soul. For those who are able, would like to, welcome to stay on for a conversation with Cantor Louise Treitman about this beautiful teaching for today and to extend our Hoshanah Rabbah practice into the rest of the day. If you have a question, comment, please put it in the chat box. If it's a question, if you can preface it with a question in all caps, that would be great. And I will keep an eye out. Okay, so there's a question right away from Valerie, Louise, about Aravot willows. Why were they specifically chosen for the beating ritual, and what's the link to water? Okay, want to take that one?
Wow, that's interesting. Actually, one of the books that I was looking at as we moved, as I was trying to prepare what I would share with you today, was from the Sfat Emet, and it talked about willows being the mouth, and as when you look at the lulav, you have the palm branch being the backbone, and the eyes, and the mouth, and the heart. And the willow is the sort of shape of the mouth. And the Sfat Emet talks about the willow talks about the mouth as a time of speaking and a time of silence. And so that, I don't know if that really pulls into there. Maybe it's just because the willow leaves come off easily. Obviously, you're not going to do it with the etrog, and you're not going to do it with the palm. I don't know what the myrtle is like, but
the myrtle would hang on. The willow, I think the willows.
Yeah, the willow is going to come
willows
off.
are the willows are the most of the components of the lulav. The willows are the most kind of vulnerable and fragile. The one, it's hard.
Yeah.
They're hard to it's hard to sustain them over the course of Sukkot.
Throughout the holiday.
I've always found that really a struggle to figure out that, there's all kinds of strategies for trying to preserve the willows.
Wrap it in.
But they are, you are aware day by day that their time is limited. And there's something about that, I think. Of course, the association of willows with waters, and of course they grow by water. That last week, when I was in Massachusetts, I was kayaking on the Stockbridge Bowl and saw this incredible old willow tree, huge willow tree, right at the edge of the water, growing by the edge of the water.
Wow.
And was thinking about this. So I think there is something about water, I think, as symbolic of life itself, right?
Yes.
Right from the get-go. We can tie this into Bereshit, Louise, right? We have water.
We certainly can.
We have the separation of waters. This water is the stuff of creation. Of course, without it, we wouldn't be here. We are mostly water, right? Our bodies themselves are mostly water. And yet...
Well, there's also, Mark, this water ceremony,
right.
the Simchat Beit Shoeva, which was wonderful yesterday. Mayim Chaim, which is in the Boston area, had a beautiful virtual workshop for 3 hours with the Hadar and a number of sister organizations. And we did a virtual, experience, and holding the water and imagining it's the last of the water from last year, carrying it up, so that idea of water being precious. And obviously in, the land of Israel at the time now, but also at the time of the temple, there's not a lot of water there.
Yeah.
And so we really depend on that.
Well, there are it feels like there are countless associations with water, and this transitional moment between the death of one year, the beginning of the new, and the role of Torah and the association of Torah with the water, of drawing water, and Sukkot as this very earth-based holiday, where it's a very embodied holiday. We're really meant to experience our connection with earth itself. And, if it's okay with you, Louise, I'm going to invite Rabbi Deborah Robbins in here.
Oh, yes, I'd love to.
Okay. I don't know if you're, hopefully, I can't see you, so I hope you're in a position to be.
Well, I hope, no, she said she was going to have her
there you
screen
are.
on,
Okay.
but, wonderful.
Hope that's okay.
I even put on a real shirt to come to class today.
Okay. You look great.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you, Louise. Wow. And thank you, Mark, for the shout out. I really appreciate it.
That's okay.
Pleasure to be here with all of you, but I am regularly here on Mondays.
I know you are. I know you are.
It's not
both of you are. I feel like you should know each other from that. But
yeah, well, we have a mutual friend that we discovered today.
Oh, good.
Which is why we're together.
So I don't know, Deborah, if you want to add anything to this question about what the also, Louise, I want to circle back before we finish to the associations, because I want to invite people to think about the rest of today. How do we experience ourselves as those willows, right? What are the associations? Like you offered a number. I couldn't keep them all in my head. The one that stuck with me was really about forgiveness and self-forgiveness, right? About shedding that which is, burdening us and keeping us from moving fully into a new year. That
Mhm.
really like that, but
And
I
some
know
of
that,
that was based on Deborah's book. with
right.
the,
That's
you
why,
know,
that's why
one
I'm
of those
looking,
words.
so I'm
Yeah.
looking at the two of you. Okay, so can you fill us in? In other words, here's the question: how does everyone here practice Hoshanah Rabbah today in their, going forward? Like, what are these? Maybe it just means repeating those kavanot, which were so beautiful. What are the options? Forgiveness is one. I think gratitude was another, right?
Yeah, gratitude. Solemnity was another, just because of the connection to, I mean, in some of the books that I was looking at, it's like another Yom Kippur.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I love Psalm 27, and
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my own melody for it about 8 years ago as I was preparing for a high holiday travel to Europe. And Richard and I are friends, and we often write melodies for the same texts. So I was thrilled to hear his melody, and I've used it also with. But I feel that solemnity and gratitude and joy. I mean, I wasn't able to go in person, but my congregation in Lexington, I went to Hoshanah Rabbah services this morning, and they were dancing around.
Yeah.
Next year I'll go in person. Hebrew College has a wonderful Hoshanah Rabbah, which I have never been able to go to. And so anyway, Deborah, I don't know if you have other
You want to
thoughts
add anything? Anything, Deborah?
Well,
Just
what I
I
would-
wasn't sure if it was clear that I don't know if I remember if it was mentioned that in terms of how long that Psalm 27 is used in this way liturgically through tomorrow, right? Through Shmini Atzeret, and then Reform and Reconstructionist and Israeli custom Simchat Torah.
Yeah, so it's just one of the biggest conundrums in putting the book together was knowing that it would be used in a community like this of diverse movements, and how was one book going to address different movements that have different kinds of practices even within Judaism. And so what we hope is the artful solution, published by CCAR Press, which is a reform movement, was that it brings you up through tomorrow for Simchat Torah. And then it's got one more day for Shmini Atzeret, that either if you are observing Shmini Atzeret on that 8th day, that's great, it's there for you. And if not, it propels you forward into the year with one extra. So we hoped that sort of held everybody in one place with the practice. And I think it's related, for me, it's related to this idea of the water pouring and the water at this end of the season, that, one of the first teachings I learned was sort of sympathetic magic. Like, God really needs us to pour out the water to remember to bring the rain for the next season. But I sort of love that we practice pouring water, and we hope that God will then send the right amount of water, and that it won't rain in our sukkah until the festival is over. But it helps us make that transition into the next season. And I think that that's the key with any of these spiritual practices, that it doesn't just end with Psalm 27 and these holidays, but we then move into the next ones, and we switch the words of the Amidah, and we begin a new set of practices that'll lead us back around through the seasons and the cycles.
Beautiful, really beautiful.
Thank
I'm thinking about also the beating, which can't say, just as the beating of the chest during the penitential, during the penitential season is something that I know that I have, reinterpreted in my own mind as a kind of, tapping on the heart, like cracking an egg, cracking open, not beating and harshness, but tapping. So just wanted to offer that, because the willows, I think, are traditional. I know what you saw, Louise, but they're really you'd take it all out on those willows pretty harshly. And there's a gentle and compassionate way to release the leaves, right?
Oh, I love that, Mark. I think that's a really wonderful way of looking at it. And I think that's some of what, with Deborah's book, the idea of forgiving oneself, even just with one moment of meditation, and, having been able not to pay attention, for example. But if you think of forgiveness in the longer term, and not just those, that immediate moment,
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
There were some.
I have not been paying attention to the
There's some,
questions.
yeah, no,
so I-
there are not so many questions, but there are so many great tips in the chat
Yeah.
box at the moment. Thanks to Cheryl for cutting a willow branch will regenerate and spread easily. It's used in stream bank restoration. Even as the leaves fall, the twigs will sprout again. I saved my twigs and put them in water and they grew new leaves about 8 months later. That's pretty cool. From
Fantastic.
Ricky,
Thank you, Cheryl.
Ricky Lippitz. If
Mhm.
you trim and put the myrtle in water now, they will last for months and smell lovely. Perfect bisamin for Havdalah. 1 year later, some lasted
Through the
lasted all the way
spring.
through the spring and sprouted new shoots at the top at Pesach. These are just
Wow.
these are great. Yeah,
This
and I
is
didn't even put my,
fantastic.
we don't even have any etrog jam recipes yet. So feel free to plug those in.
Wow,
This
this
is a
is
great
great.
little.
You need a
wiki.
whole bag of sugar, Mark, a whole 5-pound bag.
Yeah,
per
I think
etrog.
so. I think so. It's bitter stuff. All right. Well, this was
Wow.
a treat. This was a treat. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Deborah. But
Oh, it's
thank
such a
you.
treat. It's so wonderful to be with all of you. I'm going to go put my my willow and my myrtle in water and know that
I
I'll
know.
have
I know.
table decorations come Pesach. So I'm excited about that.
Well, thank
Right.
you, Deborah, for being here. I mean, I knew you were here
thank
anyway,
you.
but I'm so glad I knew you were here. It just was such a gift. And,
Thank you to
thank
everybody
Mark.
for the kind words. And Louise, thank you for this beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful teaching today.
Yeah. And Louise, thank you for having us in that incredible sukkah. Especially for those
I'm so
who are
happy to share it.
not able to be in a sukkah, to vicariously, be present and, sit in besimcha, enjoy together.
Yes, so
in
grateful
beautiful
to get to sit here one last day. So
Okay.
thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks, Adi. Thanks,
Thanks
Bev.
to everybody.
And Chag Sameach, everyone. We'll see you on the other side of the Chagim on Thursday with Mira Neshama Niculescu. Be well.